Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network. And yes, we got our music back. So it's great to have our music back with us for our great podcast. Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network can be heard as always on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We're on TuneIn. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Podcast Addict, Spotify, Castbox, and many other podcast networks that you can listen to, the Box on Beltway Podcast Network, anytime you want to. No question about that. This week's podcast, we're going to talk about a couple of big wins for two new local boxers, a loss for another local boxer, and we'll tell why a boxer will not be on a card this coming weekend. It's an interesting story behind that. And we're going to talk this week, and this is going to be where boxing and pop culture collide for me here. A DC legend, a singer who will always be a musical legend from DC. The anniversary, the 50th anniversary of perhaps his greatest work, I think it is his greatest work, is this week. And there is a documentary about that is just fantastic. And if you haven't seen it already, I want to tell you about it. So we'll talk more about that as well. The Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network brought to you as always by Real-Time Pain Relief, from boxers to ballerinas, for shoulder pain and muscle strain, everything in between. Boxing Along the Beltway recommends Real-Time Pain Relief, the natural, plant-based, safe, fast, and effective ointment. Go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real-Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief, now endorsed by two-time world heavyweight champion Big George Foreman. So try his knockout plan for Real-Time Pain Relief. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. She has great weight loss tips, great jewelry, and great training methods, all at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Well, this past weekend, Saturday, May 8th, at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, the Davis brothers, Keyshawn, that was on the undercard of the Canelo Alvarez-Billy Joe Saunders card this past Saturday. Keyshawn Day, they're both out of Arlington, Virginia, by way of Norfolk, Virginia. Keyshawn Davis won a 6-round unanimous decision over Jose Antonio Mesa of Mexico. Now, according to reports, I know Jeff Zimmerman of FightNews.com talked about this as well. Davis let his hands go freely throughout the bout. He landed shots to the head and the body of the durable and taller Mesa. And all three judges scored a shutout for Davis, 60-54. So, relatively easy victory, at least on the cards, for the former United States Olympic team member. Davis is now 3-0, 2 KOs, his first 6-round bout. And Mesa is 7-5 with 2 KOs. Meanwhile, Calvin Davis, the older brother of the two, he had a tougher time a little bit. He won a 4-round unanimous decision over Jan Masalek of Czech Republic. Now, Davis started landing punches from the outside in the first round, but then he changed his tactics, and I think he's going to regret doing that in the future. Changed his tactics, decided to work inside in round 2, and that's where Masalek started to gain a little advantage during the contest. And Masalek would catch Davis late in the 4th round with a right hook to the jaw, and he would drop Kelvin Davis. But Davis did enough to win throughout the bout. All three judges scored about 38-37. Davis is now 2-0, 1 KO, and Masalek falls to 8-3, 7 KOs. And I said last week that Kelvin Davis taking a big chance facing a guy who not only had more bouts. I mean, he had 10 pro bouts going into this contest, but and he also had won a minor title. Masalek had won a minor title as well. So it was a big jump for Kelvin Davis, but he was up to the task and he won, and he's now 2-0, 1 KO. Now I know Keyshawn Davis has scheduled to have a bout sometime in June. June looks like it's going to be a pretty big month for us, so we're going to talk more about that a little bit later on. Now, the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, also on Saturday, May the 8th, Annapolis, Maryland super lightweight David the Demolisher Veras Pena. He lost by first-round knockout to undefeated hometown boxer Tamir Smalls. Now, no details on this bout are available, but it was a first-round knockout loss for Veras Pena. He remains winless at 0-5. Smalls is 4-0 with 3 KOs. So that is the results from last week. Again, good wins for the Davis brothers and another tough loss for David Veras Pena. Now, we have breaking news here. Now, a guy that was scheduled to fight this coming Saturday, May 15th, at the Sokol Club in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That was debuting DC super featherweight Donnell Poe. He was scheduled to compete in a 4-round bout against undefeated Johnny Spell of Pittsburgh. Now, And I got calls from this from Buddy Harrison, the father of Dusty Hernandez Harrison, who's actually training Donnell Poe at this time. But apparently, first of all, they wanted Donnell Poe, who is a super featherweight, to come in at lightweight, 130 pounds, to fight this bout against Johnny Spell. That's what the promoters and I think the Spell camp wanted him to do. So the weigh-in was today, as we record this. And apparently, Johnny Spell came in almost 4 pounds over the 130-pound limit that they wanted Poe to fight in the first place. So, Dusty Harrison, being the boxing man that he is, he stuck to his guns and really did not want to take the fight. And Spell couldn't get down to the 130-pound weight. So the bout is called off. And I think Poe and Harrison got some extra money because they made the trip up to Pittsburgh to do this. And again, Spell was 3-0, 3 KOs. He scored first-round knockouts in all 3 of his previous bouts, but he wasn't ready to go on this weekend. So he's not fighting, and unfortunately, neither is Donnell Poe. So Poe is off the card this Saturday, May 15th at SoCo Club in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, coming up later on this month, Friday, May 21st at Rock Hill, South Carolina, District Heights, Maryland, super featherweight Ronaldo Misunderstood Gaines. He'll be in an 8-round contest against Steve the Answer Massey of Charlotte, North Carolina. Gaines is 10-2, 3 KOs. He hasn't fought since May of 2019 when he won a 4-round unanimous decision over Eduardo Melendez in D.C. And Gaines is riding a 6-bout winning streak. Meanwhile, Massey's 12-1, 9 KOs. Last fought on October 24th and scored a first-round knockout over Manuel Galavis in Greenville, South Carolina. That's on Friday, May 21st in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Meanwhile, in Greenville, South Carolina, on Saturday, May 22nd, a number of Beltway boxers scheduled to be on this card at the Greenville Marriott. Darren Sweet Tay Williams, the super bantamweight out of D.C., he returns to action against Diamond J. Beyer of Phoenix, Arizona, by way of the Philippines. Williams 8-1, 5 KOs. Hasn't fought since scoring a second-round TKO over Raymond Chacon in September 2019 in Sterling, Virginia. And Beyer, who is 44 years old, he last fought in February of 2020, lost a 4-round unanimous decision to Danny Barrios Flores in Phoenix. Also in this card, Dorian Bostic out of Dundalk, Maryland, lightweight known as the Educated Boxer. He'll be in a 6-round contest trying to keep his record perfect against Devontae Stevenson of South Carolina. Bostic 7-0, 7 KOs. Traveled all the way to Colombia in May 1st, the country of Colombia, on May 1st and knocked out Wagner Ortega in the second round. Stevenson's 0-3. He's been knocked out in all 3 of his bouts. Also in the card, Justin and Jason Bell, the Bell twins originally from Capitol Heights, Maryland, now fighting out of Greenville, North Carolina. They haven't fought since October 2018. They're on the card at Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland. Justin's 4-0, 3 KOs, and Jason's 3-1, 1 KO. And also Ian Dancer Coakley out of Fort Washington, Maryland. He's going to be on this card as well. He's 2-0. So that's the cards coming up on Friday and Saturday, May 21st and 22nd. Friday, May 21st. They're both in South Carolina. Friday, May 21st in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And Saturday, May 22nd in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, I'm going to kind of switch gears and talk about some pop culture as far as music is concerned. And I want to talk about a very nice documentary that's on CNN. It ran last Sunday. I think it's scheduled to run later on this weekend. And you can catch it on demand on cable. And I suggest that you do so, because this is a fabulous documentary. I want to talk about it a little bit, primarily because it does have a DC hook to it, even though it's not boxing per se. Although I think he was, or at least tried to be a boxer at one time. 50 years ago this year, there was the album that was voted actually #1 album of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. And it is probably this man's best work. And of course, he was a native Washingtonian, born and raised. And I think he actually passed away in this city because of a killing by his father. But we're talking about the legendary Marvin Gaye. And Marvin Gaye, 50 years ago this year, put out an album that just transcended time, space, you name it. In fact, many people, including myself, believe the album is relevant even today with all the things that are going on in the world and in our country. The album, of course, was What's Going On. And, I've listened to it many times, but I've forgotten, in all honesty, that there were three outstanding songs. Three of my favorite Marvin Gaye songs were all on that album. The title cut, of course, What's Going On. Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology, was on that album. And Inner City Blues, also they better known as Make Me Wanna Holler. That was part of the hook of that song. And they were all on the What's Going On album. And it came at a time when the Motown artists, many of them, not all of them, many of them, were starting to look at what was going on around them and making note of that and recording songs based on that. Of course, the Temptations did it during that time. This is 1971, so in 1970, in 1969, 1970, the Temptations came out with songs like Cloud 9. This is when Dennis Edwards became the lead singer, replacing David Ruffin. And of course, David Ruffin, the songs were more about love and The Girl's All Right With Me. That was actually Eddie Kendrick's leading that. But My Girl and The Way You Do Things You Do was also Eddie Kendrick. David Ruffin met My Girl. I Know I'm Losing You and all that. But in the early 1970s, many of the Motown artists started looking at the world around them and started commentating on through music. And again, Temptations came out of Cloud 9, Psychedelic Shack. And they did the love song I Can't Get Next to You and, other songs, but also songs like Don't Let the Joneses Get You Down. And a song that was that's a personal favorite of mine from the Temptations. It's not one of their biggest hits at all, but it meant so much to me growing up as a young boy to hear this song, and it still resonates with me today. It's called Message from a Black Man. It was from the Puzzle People album that also featured I Can't Get Next to You and Don't Let the Joneses Get You Down. So they were doing a lot of stuff. Of course, Stevie Wonder was singing about what was going on around him. And of course, that would lead to one of his epic songs called Living for the City. But Marvin Gaye really was the one who started the trend of Motown as a business going down that road. And of course, Berry Gordy at first didn't really want to do that. He wanted to, as they say in the documentary, which by the way is hosted by Don Lemon. He does an excellent job. CNN anchor Don Lemon. Spike Lee is on it. Maxwell, many artists of the day on it, many artists of that time. One of the original Funk Brothers, Jack Ashford is on there. He played on the album, played percussion on the album, tambourine primarily. But, Marvin Gaye, after doing songs like Ain't That Peculiar, and many of the duets he did with the ladies of Motown, like Kim Weston, and of course his great and ultimately tragic pairing with Tammy Terrell when Tammy Terrell died in his arms at the age of 31. He was wanting to be the Black Frank Sinatra. Okay. But around the late 60s, early 70s, that's when the Vietnam War was in full gear. And that was when Marvin Gaye was really looking at the world around him. He talked to his brother who was in Vietnam. And he started looking at the world. And that's what What's Going On is all about. What is going on with this world? And songs like Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology, Inner City Blues. I mean, these songs just resonate even today. I mean, What's Going On was one of the theme songs of some of the movements that have taken place in the last few months and years with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, those people who have been tragically murdered, and the situation involving police brutality. I mean, people will still ask to this day, what is going on? And ecology is still an issue. You know, inner city. Mercy, mercy me. It's the ecology is still the issue with global warming and climate change. Inner city blues. There was a book that was done by, I believe he's no longer with us, but a man by the name of Nathan McCall, who used to write for the Washington Post. He wrote a book. It's entitled "Makes Me Want to Holler," and which is the big hook from that song. Makes me want to holler, throw up both my hands. You know, that was the hook of that song. And again, there's so much that goes on now that makes no sense, and it does want to make you want to holler and throw up both your hands. You know, it was amazing watching that documentary, and even though I should say I knew some of the stories behind it, I didn't know all of them. I learned a little bit. That's the greatest thing about a documentary, is learning things about it. But the one thing I knew going in, and the documentary did nothing to change that, was how amazing that album is still relevant today. It's like it was written last week. It was recorded last week. It's that relevant today, because Marvin Gaye saw what was going on during that time, but everything that he saw during that time in the late 60s, early 70s is in many ways happening today. And that's what makes that documentary so powerful. It's just how relevant it is today. So if you get a chance, it's on CNN. It's called What's Going On. It's the 50th anniversary of the album For the Ages. I think it's subtitled. And again, Rolling Stone magazine, out of all the great albums that have been over the years, called that the #1 album of all time. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. So check out the documentary. It's a really good one. And that will do it. Very short podcast this week. Not a whole lot going on. But again, we have another big week coming up next week. And of course, next month, June is going to be a huge month for the Beltway. Not so much in the Beltway as far as I know, but definitely a lot of big bouts are coming up in June for a lot of Beltway boxers. We'll talk more about that as we keep going. That'll do it for another edition of the Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network. Once again, the Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network, brought to you by Real Time Pain Relief. You go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real Time Pain Relief, now endorsed by two-time World Heavyweight Champion Big George Foreman. And go try his knockout plan for Real Time Pain Relief. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. Great weight loss tips, great jewelry, and great training methods. All at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Gary Digital Williams. Thank you again, and always remember to keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.